Today I saw a movie that I think might be my favorite movie of the year. Um, my favorite movie of 2025 so far of all the ones that I've seen, which isn't a huge amount, but it's more than a lot of people. So the movie is called Lurker, and you probably haven't heard about it. I didn't know anything about it. I'd never seen any previews for it. I just read a description of it when I was looking at what was showing at the local movie theater, I thought it sounded interesting, but I didn't know any of the cast. I didn't. The director's name is Alex Russell, and I wonder if that's a relation to Ken Russell, the famous director of Days of Yore, or not. I don't know. I could easily find out, but I just don't know. I probably will find out after I finish recording this. But just to say, I didn't. I went in with no knowledge of anybody involved, and I enjoy movies where I can go in and it's a no name cast and nobody looks familiar. Um, and that's the case here. Now, maybe some of these actors have been around before in other things, but they were all new to me. This is a movie that was definitely not made for my age demographic. This is a movie about young people uh, and the music scene among young people today. But I thought the themes are were universal enough that even an over the hill guy like me could still really get involved and invested in the story. Um, and In a lot of ways, Lurker is kind of a redoing of The King of Comedy, the Martin Scorsese movie from 1983, where with Robert De Niro and Jerry Lee Lewis. Not Jerry Lee Lewis. Sorry, Jerry Lewis, not Jerry Lee Lewis. The the famous um, comedian, not the singer, not the singer who was married to his 12-year-old cousin. Um, so just to make that clear. But anyway, that movie was about the relationship between a nobody, a quote unquote nobody, who's looking to carve a path to fame, to become quote somebody, who has an encounter with a very famous person, which is Jerry Lewis, who plays like a Johnny Carson type late night talk show host. And in The King of Comedy, De Niro's character is driven to extreme measures to get what he wants to get his way, and at Jerry Lewis's character's expense. Um, and so there's it Lurker has the same kind of is about the same kind of thing. It's about a relationship between a quote unquote nobody. In this case, it's a young guy named Matthew, who's a clerk in a clothing store in L.A. And this famous or up and coming famous, but could maybe growing into even greater fame, uh, young singer named Oliver. One day, Oliver comes into this clothing store with a couple of his entourage, and Matthew recognizes him, but pretends not to know who he is, and they end up connecting because Oliver is impressed that this guy doesn't know him. Now, we find out later that it's all a ruse, that Matthew does know who Oliver is, and is a big fan. But he's clever enough to know that the way to distinguish himself, to make an impression, is to not exactly nag him, but in a way, sort of be like, well, I don't really, I don't know who you are. Yeah, I don't listen to much new music. I listen to old stuff, and so they Oliver digs that, and asks him to come to his show that night, and so Matthew goes, has a backstage pass, meets up with all of Oliver's entourage, and finds his way in over the days that follow into his inner circle. And because he's an aspiring photographer or cameraman, he's he Oliver eventually hits on the idea of having Matthew become some sort of important creative consultant to him. Now, Oliver is very flaky. He's like he's youthful and stupid and arrogant and full of himself, but he also has wants to be bigger than he is, wants to be a more major star than he is, and wants to really break through. Matthew senses that about him, or susses that out in him, and eventually comes to know how to play on his vulnerabilities. But at first, Matthew is just gets bullied and pushed around by the other members of the entourage. They just sort of make him be the guy who washes the dishes in the house. This house that's I guess that Oliver has rented with his millions out in L.A. He's from England. He's got an English accent. He's mulatto. But just sort of setting the profile of who this Oliver Singer is. He's a kind of a The Weeknd-esque sort of guy, but younger, and less established. But I think we're supposed to see some sort of continuity there, or some resemblance there, and so he just is like the house, the whipping boy. He's like low on the totem pole, and they make him take out the garbage, and they make fun of him, and so forth, but he eventually sort of works his way in. He eats a lot of shit willingly, just because he wants to be in this inner circle, and what motivates him is never exactly clear. Is it that he wants to be famous himself because he enjoys seeing his social media grow and grow and grow when he takes pictures of Oliver, and people see that he's a confidant of Oliver's. So he's enjoying, becoming famous, and maybe getting his own photography work given more of a chance, given being taken seriously by people. But he also seems to have this pull towards Oliver, um, which maybe an attraction, um, or it might just be like a parasocial kind of relationship where he's just in awe of this guy because he's a celebrity, and just wants to be uh, close to him, wants to be friends with him because of it makes him feel important to be friends with this cool, famous mulatto singer. At some point, though, he messes up. He becomes a part of the entourage, and then other people start to filter in, and he starts doing things to undermine the other guys in Oliver's circle to try to so that he can become the main one. But then he starts to get undermined as well, and there's all kinds of low tricks that they play on one another. And meanwhile, Oliver is just arrogantly soaking up all the adulation of watching all these other people fight over him, and but he's not very he also has a mean streak. He's not very nice often, a lot of the time, and like I said, very full of himself, and also uh, driven to be more famous than he is, and there's an insecurity also in him. um, so the two characters kind of have a ironic insecurity that reflects back on one another. They're mirrors of each other in some very unusual ways. And at around the midway point, you uh, it looks like Matthew has messed up for good. He's done a couple things that have led to the Oliver not liking him anymore, and just wanting to push him out, and be done with him. Uh, and I was thinking at this point that the movie was going to go in a certain direction, that we would see uh, sort of like what happens in The King of Comedy, where at first Jerry Lewis is nice to De Niro's character, and then uh, at some point rebuffs him, and then that puts De Niro's character on this track towards hostility, eventually kidnapping him and holding him for ransom. And I thought something similar might happen here, or there might be some retaliatory violence, or something like that. But it ends up going in a much more interesting direction. And I don't want to give it away, except I'll say this much. Um, Matthew is someone not to be underestimated. As pathetic as he seems a lot of the time, just for this. Now, again, his willingness to be humiliated, to do and to do whatever he can to be a part of this jerk's entourage just because he's famous. But at some point, he's able to obtain blackmailable uh, uh, material, let's just say, and this gives him leverage. And when he has leverage, the dynamic changes between him and Oliver, and between him and the entire group, and we see him metamorphose uh, and really, in some ways, their whole relationship changes because he's got something to hold over Oliver's head, uh, um, and and so Matthew becomes the the master, the one who Oliver has to make sure to please and to bend, to do his will at all times. Um, and then it goes on from there, and it ends interestingly. I'll just say that. Uh, so I would definitely recommend Lurker. It's an uncomfortable uh, movie. It's kind of, you don't expect it to be quite as quite as powerful as it turns out to be. You kind of underestimate this movie just like you kind of underestimate the anti-hero Matthew of this movie. He doesn't seem like much. He seems like he's out of his league. Uh, he seems kind of pathetically eager to please and so forth. But he's uh, he's got a storehouse of strength, and a very sinister side that eventually manifests itself. So to the point where you don't really know who to root for and who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. Really nobody, neither of them is the good guy, but you don't know where your sympathies ultimately lie. At first, you really feel sorry for Oliver, for Matthew, you know, and then as the story goes along, when the tables are turned, uh, then you start to feel sorry for Oliver, and Oliver starts to be the one who has to endure all these humiliating trials. But ultimately, in the end, we get the impression that maybe that's what he needed to become a better artist. And in a weird way, it kind of reminded me of the movie Phantom Thread, where we there's one character does something that is incredibly damaging and harmful to the other character, but we find out in the end that the character who was victimized uh, wanted it all along. And so there's some possibility of that kind of being the ending here. It's a lot to think about, and it's a well made movie, and I highly recommend it. Lurker, check it out.